I was gonna bring one of those games.
Welcome to This Week in Fantasy Baseball, episode one, the inaugural episode. So, this podcast is going to be me, Matt Whitlock, and Aaron Alvis. I'm Tino Gonzalez. Basically, getting together and talking baseball every Sunday. We want to cover certainly fantasy baseball. That's all of our passions. But just talk kind of roundtable style, whatever we want to talk about with regards to baseball. The episodes with me and Matt will be, we'll cover some minor league stuff. Certainly, the episodes with Aaron, I'm sure we'll cover some fantasy strategy and some of the other kinds of stuff he wants to talk about. But we just enjoy talking baseball, and I think have some stuff to share. And so we thought we would put this podcast together for everyone and see where it goes. So on today's This Week in Fantasy Baseball podcast, we are just going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our general impressions of the season thus far. We will have a segment each podcast called Open Season. That's an opportunity for us to ask each other questions. We don't know those questions coming into the pod. I'm sure some of them will be pretty fun. And then Matt and I will close out today with some minor league player impressions. So go ahead, Matt, introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, who you root for, and then maybe cover your favorite hitter and pitcher, past and present.
All right. I'm Matt Whitlock. I've been following baseball since probably the early 80s. I started following the Montreal Expos just because my grandfather's family was from Montreal. I thought it'd be cool. My most of my family were 49ers and Giants fans, so I wanted to be different, choose something different. I started liking the Expos, Warren Cromartie, and then Gary Carter became my favorite player. Back in the day, I sent a card requesting his autograph, and he actually, when he used to send it to the stadiums,
Yeah.
and they would forward it to the player, and he actually wrote back a personal, to Matt, best wishes, Gary Carter.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that I became enamored with him ever since then. And of course, he was on Johnny Bench's Baseball Bunch a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
So I followed him there. And then after Carter, it was Tim Rock Raines. So I was really into steals. And again, he was kind of the rival to the local Ricky Henderson. He was the base stealer on the other coast and in Canada. So I loved Raines. And in fact, Raines has a cool story connecting me with my first season of fantasy baseball when I was in high school, when he used to do the stats by hand. We would do stats by hand, and then towards the end of the year, we would take the players and play micro league baseball with the players we had on our fantasy teams. But Tim Raines, I convinced there were two of us, and I convinced my partner, who was my teammate, who was drafting to draft Tim Raines, even though he was going to hold out. So this was I think this was 80, is it 87? Yeah, 1987. Yeah. So he kind of questioned it. He thought I was being a homer and stuff. And then come May, when Raines actually, I think he signed and all was said again. He went 5 for 5 that day, or four for 5 that day. A walk, a stolen base, a homer, and he had a grand slam to win the game. So I love that. Of course, my teammate wanted to trade high at that point. Rains would only it's downhill from there.
Right.
But anyway, I convinced him not to. But that got me involved in fantasy baseball quite early, before all the computers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Rains is my guy. And then once we started playing micro league baseball, we would draft teams and stuff. And so I'll mention my pitcher here. I kind of wanted to go a different route for a closer. So my closer was John Franco, not the typical hard throwing closer, but the one
Right.
that was dependable. So in micro league, I would piss all my friends off because I'd put him in like the seventh inning
Mhm.
if I was winning, and then the game would be shut down because that at that point that's when he was having like the ERAs and the mid ones, right?
Right.
Wasn't striking anybody out with power, but he was getting weak contact and
Right.
such. So yeah, John Franco loved him.
That's fun. That's fun. And your favorite player now?
My favorite player now, I would have to. It's tough because in a way, fantasy baseball has corrupted my faithfulness when it comes to team a little bit.
Sure.
That's why I don't play fantasy football because I'm addicted to the Browns, and I know that addiction probably would be cut off if I'm too involved in fantasy football.
Right.
But I like the Expos, but they kind of lost the feel once they came to Washington, just because there's something about the jersey, something about the
Sure.
layer of the Expos hat. But so I really I like James Wood
Mhm.
just because he's the up and coming Nat. I used to like Bryce Harper when he was a national.
Mhm.
And just going back to the old catcher thing, I would say Adley's one of my favorite players at the
Mhm.
moment, just because he can do it all besides steal, even though he got a steal, I think, this week, or a lucky steal maybe last week.
Right.
But he, he's defense, a leader. He kind of has that Carter feel, right? He
Mhm.
doesn't have the jump out numbers, but consistent numbers. He'll be a 300 hitter, 20 plus home runs, RBIs, and runs because he's at the top of a really good lineup. But
Mhm.
anyway, I just like Adley, and I like how what's cool about him as well, when they started publishing the bat speed,
Mhm.
he came in quite low, right? And I think he's one of those cases of a player that picks and chooses when to swing hard. I think 3 home runs this week, but he's a great player in showing he's going to pull out the pitching wedge when he needs to, just to pump something out into left field if he has to take one for the team, or
Right.
with sack fly. But yeah, so just that type of player is who Rutschman is, compared to, in comparison with my
Like
old favorite player, Gary Carter. Rest in peace.
it's funny because I'll get to mine in a minute, but the with the bat speed uh data and subsequent articles coming out about how to use that statistic or that information, you realize that, to me, that is like there's a threshold where data stops being, you know, super useful and becomes almost counterproductive, or
Mhm.
leads you down dead ends, right? And so when you start looking at those lists and drawing some conclusions, you realize that some of those metrics just aren't the end all, right? And I think we know that, but there are a lot of folks who are slow to, they want information that they can count on, right? They want tangible, what they consider factual information. And baseball is not always a game of, you have to figure out which stats actually are meaningful and which aren't. So to see Giancarlo Stanton as having the highest bat speed by far
Mhm.
is, of course, we all know, like, he's swinging really hard, doesn't care where he swings, essentially.
Mhm.
So it doesn't tell us a lot. And then you look at someone like Luis Ariz, who is, has a really, what is seen as a slow bat, but it's intentional, and it's to be able to hit, make good contact every time he swings. And I think Rutschman falls in that category. I don't think Rutschman is any less of an athlete than anybody else is, right? He played football at Oregon State, and he has plenty of power. Um, he's just choosing to, try to put the ball where he wants to put it. And so that stuff is interesting to me, as well. Uh, my team.
Why is it so fun to watch? Because you just looking at his eyes when he comes to bat, he's looking at the placement of the fielders. He's looking
Totally.
who's going to hit it, and he's almost like a golfer. He's choosing whether he's going to pull out his 5 iron,
Right.
his driver, or his pitching wedge.
Right. Well, and it's like watching Arise. I know this is blasphemous, and he's nowhere near the caliber of hitter, but it's like watching Tony Gwynn, right? It's
Mhm.
like watching, it's different, but to a certain extent, watching Ichiro. He did similar stuff where he was trying to serve the ball into left field a ton. And they're it's beautiful, right? To me, it's beautiful baseball to watch. And I wish that I think there are more players like that, but I just think that they're not valued in the same way. So they're not given the opportunities that they once were. especially if they can't field like Arise. Favorite team, Seattle Mariners. Anybody that knows me knows that's my team. I don't really root for any other teams. I enjoy watching some others, but the Mariners is the one team that I root for. I think as we go deeper into fantasy baseball, my it gets more and more narrow, right? Because I don't you're rooting for players and not teams anymore. And but the Mariners will always be my first love. And so of course my favorite present player is Julio Rodriguez. Uh as you know, I rostered him in our league, which has 5 minor league slots and 50% keepers. I rostered him before he even came stateside. So invested in him, love him. Um, he is my favorite player by far. He plays great center field defense. I think he contributes all the time, regardless of whether he's hitting well or not. This year, obviously, he's not hitting very well, but he's playing a Gold Glove center field, and that's my dude right now. Past favorite hitters, Ken Griffey Jr. certainly as a Mariners fan. Growing up a Mariners fan, we all know Griffey. The other one is Eric Davis. I've seen some love for Eric Davis over the past couple of weeks on Twitter, which has been kind of fun to see because I don't think he was always given his just due as a player. I actually looked him up on Fangraphs today just for this. For those of you that don't know, his age 25 season was 1987. 129 games, 562 plate appearances, which is not a ton, right?
Mm-hmm.
37 homers, 120 runs, 100 RBIs, 50 stolen bases. It's so crazy, right? 37 homers, 120 runs, 100 RBIs, 50 steals in less than 600 plate appearances is just bananas. Played a great center field, electric player, but he was definitely my favorite non-Mariner. And then I loved Dwight Gooden, as I think a lot of us did of our generation, for obvious reasons. When he was young, he was so, high 90s fastball, huge curveball. And, it was always fun to see a brother be a good pitcher, right? It was a bit of you didn't see it all the time back then, and you see even less of it now, specifically African Americans. And that was meaningful to me even at like 9 years old. And then Alejandro Pena is like my irrational favorite pitcher. He was a cool looking dude and relief pitcher. When he was at best, he was a reliever for the Dodgers. But my grandfather on my Filipino side loved the Dodgers, and I had to call him to let him know the Dodgers were on as a kid when they were on Saturday game of the week. And so I grew up watching a little bit of Dodgers, and Pena was just a guy that I loved. And when I started playing dynasty baseball or pursue the pennant, he was a player. He was always my closer, just because I thought he was a cool dude. So, and then I like the Dodgers because my grandfather did. I was still a Mariners fan, but I liked him as a kid. And then my daughter, Malia, who is 22 now and starting law school, is a huge Giants fan. And she and her mom and stepdad and her sister fly from Seattle to San Francisco every year to go see a Giants series. So I do like watching the Giants too, but really Mariners through and through. And like you, started playing Pursue the Pennant and, Stratomatic, that type of thing really early on. I think 89 is when I first started playing. And that's always been any excuse to get together and play for us was, we tried to find time. We played during lunch instead of playing ball sometimes. We played at each other's houses. We finished 162 game seasons with drafted teams, which was super fun. And my favorite story is my buddy Jason Chan and I think we were 16, drove to Cannon Beach because his mom had rented a cabin there. We didn't go to the beach at all. All we did was play Stratomatic. But the kicker is at 16 at Cannon Beach, where we could have just been running wild, right? We're playing Stratomatic like some nerds. But the funny part is we forgot our 10-sided dice. And have I told you the story before? So we forgot our 10-sided dice. And but we were so hell-bent on playing, we tore little pieces of paper and wrote the numbers on the little pieces of paper and drew them out of a hat for every dice roll. And we played for 5 days straight, pulling numbers out of a hat. So I don't know if you're not, if that doesn't say you're a baseball fiend and Stratomatic fiend, I don't know what does, but that was a fun memory. So that's me, Mariners fan. Just I don't know. Baseball is religion, I think, for both of us in many, many ways. All right. So general impressions of the 2024 Major League season. What are the first things that come to mind for you?
Yeah, it's been a weird season. And I think you notice it more because of fantasy baseball as far as the statistics go.
Mhm.
Um, the first thing obviously is injuries with the pitcher injuries left and right. I think they calmed down a little bit, but
Mhm.
pitchers throwing out their arms. Um, that's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing is even the batters, um, pulling hamstrings, pulling quads, and so forth.
Mhm.
And then the third thing is the hitting itself. You have we were talking about this before we came on. You have stars from last year that are just struggling.
Mhm.
From the rookie of the year Corbin Carroll to J Rod to Acuna.
Mhm.
Not necessarily putting up the numbers, and I think one of the things we always see is that highlight of the combined home runs of those three players versus like a Tyler O'Neill.
Right.
Um, yeah. So that's been a little bit baffling. Um, there's rumors as far as the balls. I'm not fully convinced of that. I think a lot of it is adjustment. A lot of it is analytics, the way pitchers are attacking hitters now. They have so much information on their hands. Even when I ended up trading Carroll um, this year for James Wood and a draft pick. But I don't even think it, everybody was saying it, his shoulder shot. But I think that poor analysis was shot down when the bat speed came out, right? Because he's pretty high in bat speed. I think it was 73, between 73 and 75. He's swinging hard. He's just popping up. He's not. And pitchers know to pitch him inside and then down outside.
Right.
And now it's his turn to adjust. And so I think analytics is really making this into a chess game between pitchers and hitters.
Mhm.
And the pitchers have figured certain hitters out, and now it's the hitters' turn to figure out pitchers.
That's so though in my notes I had essentially the same thing. So 9 out of the 10, we've all seen the stat. 9 out of the top 10 starting pitchers in velocity, average velocity last season are now on the injured list. The last one standing is Hunter Green. And I don't think that's a coincidence because I don't think Hunter Green is maxing out every pitch to throw 100 miles an hour, right? I think he has more in the tank. And so he's more naturally a high velocity pitcher. But it is interesting, 9 of the 10 are on the injured list. And, you know, so my question for you, we can answer it after this, but is, we talked a lot about, you and I personally and with friends have talked a lot about, Cleveland and Tampa Bay and the Dodgers as being teams that are really great at teaching pitching. And I think there is a lot of that, but those are also the teams with like the biggest injuries, right? Those are the teams that where the pitchers are all broken. It was Glasnow and the Rays. It was Dustin May with the Dodgers. It's Daniel Espino. It's Gavin Williams. It's, the list goes on and on and on of all the pitchers that are broken. And so the question is, when you compare that to, let's say, the Mariners, right, where I think their Mariners starters can hit 98, 99, but they all average right around 95 with their four seam. And I think that's a very intentional thing. And will we see pitching move more towards, throwing at like 95% or 90% velocity in the name of health?
Hmm.
The other thing that's interesting to me is I really think that we know breaking balls are maybe not in isolation, but breaking balls are such a great swing and miss pitch, right? We know sliders above 85 miles an hour achieve great results. Um, Curveballs, we've seen a ton of splitters. We see the low averages on those pitches. And somebody somewhere just said, why aren't we throwing more of those? Right? why are we throwing so many fastballs? Why don't we throw more breaking balls? And that's the adjustment that the pitchers have made. And I think hitters are trying to adjust, and you're seeing breaking ball hitters hit better. But it's time for hitters to adjust to that and start looking for that. And there was no series where it was more evident than the Red Sox playing the Mariners at the beginning of the season, right? And they just shut the Mariners down, and it was because they just threw a bunch of junk at them. And so that's, to me, a big adjustment. Um, and then players like, like you said, Julio his timing is off. And I think his timing is off because he doesn't know what's coming, breaking ball or fastball. And so he's hitting the ball hard, but he's not hitting it pull side. He's not hitting it in the air. And then, as I spoke of with you before the pod, Acuna, I think just they were going high fastball, low breaking ball to him last year, and he was able to kind of golf that breaking ball and catch up with the fastball. This year, they're throwing him a lot of low fastballs, and he's not hitting the fastball very well. So it's just adjustments, which leads me to in fantasy, like there are managers who are very reactive to a player not playing well, right? And this may be a player with a great track record, but you're just like, screw it, I don't want this dude anymore. He's pissing me off, right? Not with your stars, but with some very big names at times.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are managers who, and I fall in this bucket, the second bucket, which is you got to look at a baseball card and remember the season's long. It's not as if, Ronald Acuna and J-Rod aren't going to fall off a cliff and stay there. They're going to go on a tear, and they're going to end up playing really well for most of the season. It's just going to take time, and it's going to take adjustments, right? And especially if they have a track record of doing it already.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, especially in our league, to see some people are panicking and making a bunch of moves, and some people are just kind of staying the course. For me, my team is a stay the course team. You just got to trust that they're going to perform up to what the back of the baseball card says. Hopefully it's soon, but what is your approach, and how would you coach? If you were trying to give advice to someone else, what would you say to the Acuna owner or the J-Rod owner, or the Corbin Carroll owner right now, right?
Traded, yeah. So I think one of the things that's interesting is it's always the start of the year, right? So like if Corbin Carroll started out hot, and let's say he had just an awful June, in the accumulation of his stats, you wouldn't notice that, right? But if somebody starts off with an awful April, people panic, right? And they say, "What's wrong with this hitter? This hitter's injured. Maybe last year was a fluke or so forth." Those same questions aren't asked if it's a mid-year slump or an end-of-the-year slump, just because you have the accumulation of stats. So that's the first thing. The second thing too is like you said, there's players that you just got to believe in their talent, right? And it's not just the accumulation of baseball card stats, but just trusting their talent, that they've done it before. They have the skills, right? So I'm not just talking about raw talent like an Elijah Green, who's obviously, probably the most talented athlete in the minors that's struggling with skill, right? But the talent as far as, the hand-eye, the skill, the knowing the zone and so forth, you just got to trust that long term. And so I think there's players that I think you're gonna trust that they're gonna recover. I think Carroll's gonna recover. I traded him because I was guilty about trading Wood, right? And I wanted the player from my favorite team. So a player like Carroll is gonna come back. Where I don't think it's too bad. Like I had buddies from our league because Torres was cut today, right? Second baseman for the Yankees.
He was.
But what's that? Yeah. Wait, yeah, you didn't see that?
I did. I did.
You did. But I don't think it's, they were saying wow, but to some extent he's a big name, right? He's New York, he's Yankees, contract year. He's going to come back and do well at second base. But at the same time, he's kind of like a middling second baseman, right? He's maybe between a 5 ranked, in his best year, outside of the top 5 second baseman, maybe all the way to 15, right? If it's and he's obviously way outside of that now.
Right.
So a middling player like that, I have no problem moving on, right? Because you could go find somebody hot that's going to do well, and especially second base, right? Second base itself is kind of like you're not going to have these players that jump out that are going to be complete difference makers compared to other second basemen. So it depends on the player. But
Right.
if it's an elite player that's slumping, um, unless you could get a good price, stick with them. And if you like that player's going to come back.
Right.
So I think it's a two factors: how they proven themselves before, and do you believe in their elite talent? Is that elite talent gonna continue?
Right. Real quick. So if we're talking about Torres, I'm just going to name top to bottom, start naming second baseman, right? Our league is 16 teams. You start one second baseman. There is no middle infielder position. So 16 is kind of the cutoff, right? And so Semien, Betts, Altuve, Ketel Marte, Jordan Westberg, Stott, Steer, Turang, Paredes, Morel, Estrada, Jimenez, Cronenworth, Toro, McMahon, Freeman, Tyler Freeman, Julian, Donovan, Bush, Rosario. That's 20, right? And then the next page has a bunch of dudes too. Ha-Sung Kim, Willie Castro, Caballero, Bogarts, Luis Garcia, Albies, Palacios, Arise. Like the point is Dylan Moore, Nick Horner, Nolan Gorman. There are so many second basemen that, yeah, people see the name Gleyber Torres and Yankees and they just think like, oh my God, that guy is great. The reality is he's not a top 16 second baseman right now, and he may not be for the rest of the year. And so it makes sense. You have to be able to sift through the information to figure out whether, if I was to pick up Torres, I would want to look at all of his metrics to try to figure out, is this something that's just a slump and you're buying super low on this guy? Or is it something where he's actually struggling, right? What does his whiff rate look like? What does his ground ball rate look like? How is he hitting on certain pitches in certain locations? Is it something that can be exploited over and over again, or is it just bad luck that maybe he has a 180 BABIP? Like there's so many different reasons that to just jump at the name and come to that conclusion, to me, isn't fair to the owner that cut him, if that makes sense. In my mind, I think that sells that owner short. They have their reasons for doing it. And you know what? If it's like a simple hate cut and you're just pissed, more power to you, more power to you. I'm looking.
I do that with Chafin every year.
Yeah, 100%. BABIP is 286. His strikeout rate is higher than it's been since his rookie year. So that's not a good sign, obviously. 8.7% walk rate. The K rate is still only 24%, which isn't great, but it's not bad. His BABIP is exactly the same as what it was last year. Launch angle is a little higher than last year. Average EV down a mile, 1.3 miles an hour, which is still 88.4, which isn't great, but it's not horrible. His barrel percent is super low. But a lot of these numbers say that it's the same player, right? Ground ball rate slightly lower than last year. Fly ball rate right about the same. Infield fly rate is 21%, which is insane. So he's just popping the ball up in the infield.
He's one of those players that's Carroll is doing the same thing. I think he's doubled his infield fly balls.
Right. And it's a simple adjustment, right? It's literally a simple adjustment, and he goes back to being a potential 25 home run hitter at second base. So to me, the answer would be certainly be buy. I think there's a lot of good things going on with him.
Team context too. He's going to score a lot of runs. He's going to get RBI. And the Yankees aren't going to bat him ninth either. So
and the whiff rate against fastball breaking and off speed are all under 30%. So it's not like he's swinging and missing a ton on one particular type of pitch. His zone contact is a lot worse than last year. It's 8%, 8.4% worse than last year. So he's swing in zone. He's not hitting nearly as much as he did. But
do you think that has to do with what you were talking about earlier? That and I'm just saying this off a hunch or just what I'm seeing and watching some of my own players, some of the players that I roster,
Mhm.
bat. It appears obviously what happens if you're not trying to throw high MPH, if you take it off is location, right? So you're gonna have better command and you're gonna get more movement too.
Right, right.
And it appears that the ball's moving a lot on those fastballs. So again, going back to a player I was watching a lot with Carroll, his swing and miss on fastballs is compared to last year is awful, right? And his I think his OPS is like halved when it comes to off fastballs. But those fastballs are coming in high and moving a lot
Right.
and hence you're getting the pop outs. So I wonder if kind of the injury thing and the success thing have moved pitchers to take off the MPH, bring more command and movement, and that's causing hitters, even elite hitters, to muff on their swings.
Totally. I wonder too, with the increase in high fastballs, that's what's inducing those pop-ups, right? And so the adjustment for these guys might just simply be, figuring out how to hit the high fastball better or adjusting them a little bit for that high fastball. That's my inclination, at least, is that the pop-ups are coming from a high fastball. Um, Paul Skeens, I know this isn't in the rundown, but what have your first impressions been? How do you value a player like Paul Skeens fantasy wise long term?
Yes, so I did not watch his first start, but I watched his second start,
Mm-hmm.
which was incredible. Over the summer, and again, this stuff is always hard to come up with any conclusion about because you're watching players in college, right? And it's tough to really recognize spin. It's tough to really recognize, you know, how is that pitcher going to carry over into the minors and ultimately into majors. So one of the critiques of Skeens was his fastball, that it was flat, right? That it didn't have a lot of movement. So I really bought into that. I ate that up over the summer, so I mean over the break, over the fall. And so I really didn't pay too much attention. But after watching him in that second start, his fastball was moving, right? And it was locating, right? And players were baffled by it.
Right.
And then his mix of off speed was incredible as well, which he was locating. So yeah, I could understand why now um why you get the Strasburg comparisons as far as him coming up. But where I think he does beat Strasburg is he knows when to take the MPH off, right? And he
Mhm.
can locate it. He's not trying to throw 104, 103,
Right.
which he probably could if he wanted to. So I think the Pirates have done a great job in getting him MLB ready. He could be an ace. He's a star in the making. The only concern I have with any with any young starter is when is the TJS coming? And does
Right.
history of that he doesn't have it so far. So but yeah, positive things there. He looks like something that or someone that type of player that could bring a lot of attention to MLB just because
Mhm.
he has
It's
that feel to him.
above 30% with all three of his primary pitches: fastball, splinker, and slider. The splinker or the split finger is a 48% whiff rate as of right now, which is insane. The other number that I saw that's crazy is the zone contact against him. So this is two starts, mind you. So I get small sample, but zone contact is 66.7%. League average is 82%. Right. So he pitches in zone, you can't swing at. The point you brought up about the fastball, though, I think is very poignant. If so, say someone has a dead fastball or a dead zone fastball is what they call it. If um if he has a dead zone fastball, then you he has a dead zone fastball and you change the grip slightly, right? Or you just change the grip enough to give it some run. Like, I don't care if it's not the greatest pitch in the greatest pitch shape in the world. It's 100 miles an hour and it's moving, right? Even if
Yeah.
it's not moving in the right direction, who cares? It's not straight and it's coming at you at 100. And so sometimes I think we overthink. It's an example of overthinking things with him.
Mhm.
You can say the fast, and I think people had recency bias with Hunter Green, thinking that it was similar to Green. The Green's
Yeah,
fastball,
and those comps were given, right?
there's no wrinkle, right? There's no wrinkle in Hunter Green's fastball, whereas there is a wrinkle with the Paul Skeens fastball. So I don't know. It's really he's must watch TV for me. I really enjoyed everything about um Paul Skeens' presence in Pittsburgh, and I love when, for lack of a better term, like crappy organizations have a player like Skeens that brings fans to the games, right? And brings attention to the team. Uh he's cool. I just thought he was worth bringing up because it's been really fun to watch him pitch thus far. So from a fantasy standpoint, I'm looking forward to kind of learning what Paul Skeen or what value we put on Paul Skeens, to learning like what is he worth. And I think our league in particular, but in fantasy, it's especially in keeper leagues, you some managers really value pitching, and they value great pitching the same way they value great hitting. Other managers, I think you fall in the second bucket. You just kind of, I'll put my rotation together. I'll waste waiver claims trying to find guys early, and I'll invest in guys like you were on Cole Reagans before Cole Reagans was anything at all, because you knew he was going to be good and you got him on a waiver claim and didn't have to spend capital to acquire him. So I just, it's going to be interesting to see what value we all put on Paul. I offered Blake Snell and a couple of pickup grades for him, and then I made another offer. I forgot what it was. You might remember, for him right before his debut, and the other manager said no, which I get. But you're talking Blake Snell is a proven commodity, right?
Mm. Cy
And
Young.
what's that?
Cy Young.
Yeah, in both leagues.
Uh,
So I guess that answers my question as to what his value might be.
mm,
So our next segment, actually, let's do the minor stuff first, and then we'll do open season.
okay.
Um, do you have or who are your favorite minor league players right now? Who are the players that you watch, uh, and kind of who's the most fun for you right now? And then we all consume minor league data and minor league games, I think, differently, because it's a little bit on the margins because we're always watching Major League Baseball.
Mhm.
For you, how do you consume it? What kinds of things do you do to keep up on minor league baseball?
Yeah, it depends on the window of time that I have, but I'll usually start with MLB with MLB app, which I have the TV, so I'll look for my players if they're having a bat or if I have a pitcher up pitching. But then I'll if it's kind of a lull in that, I'll then skip over to MILB.com or the app and watch players. So I'll start with AAA. So on AAA, obviously I'm following Rochester with James Wood, Buffalo with Orvelis. Did I say that right?
Relvis.
Orelvis, sorry,
Mhm.
Martinez, and then taking a look there, and then what would be the third? Oh, looking at Tampa and
Junior Caminero.
yeah, junior there. So yeah, just trying to track their bats and able to get their bats up and so forth. So that's fun. And then I'll jump down to Double A. My favorite player to watch right now is Emmanuel Rodriguez.
Mhm.
Just because I love his patience. He's his first year, I think his on base percentage was 493, and it's in that elite level this year, 460. The difference is he was quite passive in his first year. He's getting more aggressive, not only with hitting, but on the base paths as well. So he's fun to watch at Wichita, and
Do,
he's
do
getting
you
tons
think
of at bats.
does he have Is he Juan Soto light? I know that's kind of been the comp for him. Do you see him hitting 30 home runs? Do you see him running a 15-17% walk rate? Is he that type of player?
Yes, yes. And I think he has EVs that are comparable to Soto, right? In fact, last year when he came up just very briefly at the end of spring training, he hit three balls over 110 against Cole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he can be that. I think he can be that superstar. He's moved up with the boards quite a bit. I think now with a few graduating players, he's in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I trust Minnesota too. I mean, besides, I don't trust their luck when it comes with injuries and prospects.
Sure.
And Erod, by the way, and this is funny as well. Erod, he 2 weeks ago, when he was stealing a lot, he dove headfirst into second base and messed up his finger.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really funny to see on Twitter when it comes to following minor league baseball. When players get hurt, you have to go onto Twitter because minor league teams kind of keep it under the radar on how badly the hitter's hurt. And it's so funny watching the threads because people who were rostering Erod were saying, "Well, did you guys see the rewind? Did you see how bad he hit it? And then
Right.
how bad he hit second base." And then somebody was writing, "Well, he took his hat off with a hand that he hurt, so his hand must not be
It
as
can't
bad."
be that bad, right?
Yeah,
It's
but
like
it's funny to see that.
investigative work.
Yeah, yeah, and the Millbap is nice just because you can go back and rewind stuff, and
Right.
so you say if if you see your player was taken out, you want to go see that play and see if it was see the reason why. And it's
Right.
always fun too. Speaking of players being taken out, if a player's not in a lineup, seeing the Twitter rumors, oh, he's going to be called up.
Right.
And then somebody saying, "Well, this player just got a day off," right? And then you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, damn it! I thought he got the call finally." Yeah, so
That happened with me I thought Felton Celestin was going to get called up to Modesto because of his start in complex ball. Once the Mariners called up or moved their shortstop from Modesto to High A Everett. And I was like, oh, they're making room for Celestin. And then of course they didn't. But it is fun with minor league stuff because there's just not a lot of information. It's kind of takes us back to the old days of following baseball, right?
uh,
For me, it's my most fun player is Lazaro Montes. It's not just because he's a Mariner in the Mariners organization, but he, 6'5", 250, left-handed. Uh, Definitely comps to Jordan in terms of he's Cuban, he's huge, left-handed swing, um, power, but his hit tool, I think, being plus is what sets him apart from other big power sluggers. I just love him, and he's super charismatic. It's super clear how beloved he is on that Modesto team, and it's super clear that he is a charismatic leader, and it's fun to root for those kinds of guys. It's especially when at 19, right? It's such a natural exuberance at 19. And that that's going to carry over once he makes the majors. But that team, Modesto, I watch all the time. It's Johnny Farmelo, top 100 prospect in center field, first round pick last year. Colt Emerson, first round pick playing third base, right? He hits second. Montes, I think is going to be top 20 at minimum top 20 in midseason updates. You might see him top 10 some places. Ty Pete was their third first round pick last year. He hits sixth and plays, and then soon to be Felton Celestin. So Celestin, I want to bring up. This isn't a Mariners podcast, but I obviously follow the Mariners and I love their prospects. Celestin was the second most expensive international free agent signing 2 years ago, right behind Ethan Salas. Last year, he had a hamstring strain that kept him out all year. So far this year, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in 10 games, he's had a hit in all 10 games. He's had 2 hits in 3 of the 10 games, and he's had 3 hits in 2 of the 10 games. So multi-hit games in 5 of 10, and he has a 10-game hitting streak so far. 2 homers, 3 doubles, a triple, 10 runs, 10 RBIs, 9 walks, 7 strikeouts, 3 steals. Like he's just going bananas. And this is a switch hitter who's an elite level athlete. So super fun. I follow these guys by creating a bookmark on my a bookmark for each of the minor league players that I love under game logs on Fangraphs. And so that's part of my morning routine, is to check to see if I didn't watch the game. It's checking to see what they did the previous day, which is a lot of fun. But minor league baseball is just fun. I think we will. So for those who don't know, Matt and I did a minor league podcast, minor league fantasy podcast, and we want to carry over some of that content to This Week in Fantasy Baseball. And so one of the things we will do probably mid-season here is to do a top 100 list each and run over that, which should be a lot of fun. Minor league baseball is just like, go ahead.
And speaking of this week, there's some players that have that started out slow that are starting to jump now, like DePaula with the Dodgers. It's an incredible week, right? And
four home runs, I think, this week, something like that.
So it's fun to do the weekend baseball stuff with minors as well, seeing those who are jumping.
Well, and it's crazy because, I'll give us both credit. We had DePaula on our lists last year, right? When no one else had them on the top 100. I had Montes in my top 30, since almost a year and a half ago. And everyone was wondering, like, who is he? But we also had Bryce Miller in our top 10 pitching prospects and got laughed at in some of our leagues for that. So I don't know. I think we're willing to invest in players before they're good. And I think a lot of the mainstream lists wait until they are good. But sometimes the talent just screams off the page, right? Celestin's talent just screams elite shortstop to me. Anything else with minor?
We had and even from last year's draft with the 3 third basemen, right? The one we highlighted was Aiden Miller, who's I probably shouldn't have said that because somebody needs to pick him up soon, right? But he's the one that is really breaking out right now too.
Aiden Miller's a dude. He's a dude. So we're gonna do a segment on each This Week in Fantasy Baseball episode that we call open season. It's an opportunity for us to ask the other podcaster baseball questions that we haven't shared with one another before the pod. So really, it's open season because you do whatever you want, right? You can ask about players that we know the other person rosters in our home league. You can ask really anything, and expect an honest answer, right? A genuine answer back. Just to kind of kick us off, I'm just going to give some stats because I think they're interesting and they'll probably apply to what we talk about. I'm going to do or provide a quick weekly leaders, some weekly leaders information. So this is just stats from this past week, meaning Monday through today. So Rafael Devers, 4 home runs, led the league. Matt Chapman, of all people, led the league in runs with 8. Inside joke there. Do you know how many RBIs Luis Matos had this week?
11?
16.
16. Wow.
16 RBIs this week for Luis Matos. The next highest is Jose Ramirez with 8. So you won that category if you had Matos, basically. I do have him in other leagues. And Ellie had 5 steals, which is nuts. He had a 4-steal game, which is insane.
Yeah,
talk a lot about Ellie moving forward. And
that's a funny one just because I haven't had the privilege of rostering him yet, but I wonder how like you get these uptakes that just put you above everybody else, and then you kind of get the flattening out. Well, so with the Dodgers, that first night, what did he go 4 for 4, 5 for 5 with those 4 steals, but then he just went flat for the rest of the series.
When you've got the difference in Ellie's value in a head-to-head versus Roto is huge, right? Roto, you'll take it and you move on. Head-to-head, he's great and he might win you a category that one week, but then he might lose a category the next week, and it's net zero because it's head-to-head where you're not just banking those stats. Andres Munoz somehow led the league in saves with 3. Shota Imanaga had led in strikeouts. He had 2 start week with 15. Um, he's fun to watch. I'm very I color me surprised with his success thus far this season because all we heard was the fastball was going to get hit for home runs. And for whatever reason, major league hitters can't hit his fastball yet. I think they will eventually, but not yet. And it explodes out of his hand, even though it's 92. It really does, for whatever reason, really explodes. Anyways, 15 strikeouts for him. And then the four, I won't ask you to name or guess the four relief pitchers with 3 holds each, but it's a funny list. It's Adam Ottavino, and this just shows you the randomness of holds. Rafael Montero, Brian Abreu, so 2 Houston guys. And the fourth one is left-handed reliever Eric Miller of the San Francisco Giants that I roster because we count holds. I just found that funny. I like him and I like his, I look for whiff rate when it comes to basically whiff rate and some form of control when it comes to relievers and opportunity. And he popped in those things. But yeah, 3 holds from Eric Miller is kind of funny to me.
But that's funny because we were playing each other this week, and so I noticed your holds, guys. So you had 2 games in a row where you had Walker come in and then Miller, Walker, Miller. So you got 4 holds in 2 days.
Yeah.
And then Garrett would have been on that list, but Garrett had a 2-inning save today.
Yeah.
For the Mets.
He did.
And,
that's the only thing my team did well last week is 7 holds. Everything else was crap. Of course I won the holds category. It stinks. So why don't you kick us off, and we'll go until we feel like we don't have any more time. I have plenty of questions for you. Why don't you start us with our first open season question?
Okay, this one's a little easier because this is on the topic that we always talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the off season and then when everybody starts doing the lists next year, name 3 out of the 5 top prospects in 2025. So who would you say
going into 25?
Yeah, going into 25 after the fall. Let's say you publish the list in December.
3 of the top 5.
The top 5. That's hard because you have to consider maybe who's graduating at the end of the year and who's not.
Right. So if I just pulled up the pipeline list, I think Holiday graduates, Skeens obviously, Caminero, Langford. I think Wood graduates. I think he's up soon. I think we see Ethan Salas in some lists. He won't be on mine. It's funny. I have to keep going down to figure this out. Top 3.
It's kind of hard, right? With all these graduating players. That's why
well, and it's the elite talent guys are further down, right? They're either graduating or they're further down. I'm going to say Montes is one. I think Montes is going to be, he's going to hit 330 with, a 1,000 OPS and close to 30 home runs. And I think you can't avoid him being great.
Where does Pipeline have him right now?
80 something, I think.
But they just put him on recently, though.
84 is where they have him.
Yeah. But I can see that.
Sorry, it's going to take me a minute to. So he's one. I don't know about number 1, but he is one of the guys I'll put there. This is going to be a little strange. I'm going to say Noah Schultz. I think Noah Schultz is moving really quickly. And, when you have a lefty, 6'9" lefty throwing mid to high 90s with the wipeout slider and a changeup now, it's unavoidable that he's going to ascend. And then this is going to be funny coming from me. I'm going to say Marcelo Mayer. I think he was hurt last year. I think proximity matters when it comes to rankings. And you're talking about a shortstop that's going to play in Boston that is going to hit, 280 with 25 to 30 home runs. And he's hitting very well this year. He's 21. Like I said, I think he wasn't healthy the last couple of years, but he's hitting 301, 346, 819 OPS. so far this season with three homers and 8 steals. The one knock is 11 walks versus 34 strikeouts. But I'm going to say Meyer. I don't love it. He's not my favorite player. I think Samuel Basallo has a chance. I think Carson Williams for Tampa Bay, the shortstop, has a chance. Roman Anthony, I think, has a chance. He hasn't been great so far this season, but he's someone that could end up hitting 25 home runs. And then, some guys down list. I would say I like Xavier Isaac. I know he's having a great season, but I'm not going to say Isaac and Montes because that's too many big slugging, no defensive value dudes. So on record for Montes, Schultz, and Marcelo Mayer is my three. What about you?
What about me? I was supposed to think about the question too, but I would agree with you on Schultz. I have Schultz ahead of Job now,
Uh-huh.
because of watching him, seeing his extension as well, and just the deception he has. He very much is kind of. I'm not sure if this is heresy saying it to a Mariners fan,
Randy.
A Randy Light, right?
Yeah.
He could be that dominant.
Mhm.
Yeah, so he's interesting. I like Roman Anthony a lot. Great exit velocities. His numbers aren't showing, but under the hood, um, all the metrics are there. Basayo's interesting. Basayo has been hurt, and he's making that jump. I think I was able to get him pretty cheap in another league just because he started out slow.
Mhm.
But I think people forget that he's 19 in Double A,
Right.
right? So
Right.
and learning to be a catcher now that his was it his shoulder that was
I don't
that
know.
was,
I
yeah,
don't know.
he had some sort of fracture, but he's better now. Yeah, so he's 270-ish, 700 OPS right now, hitting some home runs, but that's as a 19-year-old in Double A. I do like him better than Salas. I think Salas gets too much press so far. Um, yeah, so those two, I again, Erod, I think is still very underrated. He's jumping up a lot of lists.
Mhm.
I think he can still if he wants to. His speed is better than what people say. Most of his not he has 9 steals, but all those steals came before his injury, and I think the Twins got pissed and said, "Don't run him anymore."
Right.
When he hurt his
You
finger.
better
Yeah,
quit. You better quit that.
yeah, we know you're fast, just don't show it. So somebody who's kind of under, he's probably going to graduate this year, but I love his power is Owen Casey.
Mhm.
The Cubs, I like the Cubs system, but he'll probably graduate. Yeah, I think it's up for grabs, and then you have the young guys coming up like DePaula,
Right.
and Celestin
Mhm.
Montes, definitely.
Cole
Emerson.
Emerson. Yeah.
Emerson's been hurt. I think he's has oblique issues, so he hasn't been
Mhm.
playing. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup, but again, he's showing that elite eye, the elite contact. He's faster than people think he is.
Right.
People initially said he was, and then Aiden Miller as well. I can see Miller shooting up the board quite a bit.
Mhm.
And there's I picked him up briefly in our league. I like Guerrero for Tampa.
Mhm.
Guerrero is kind of like a Caminero Jr. Well, Caminero light as far as
Right.
how he's hitting the ball. He's kind of has the same the same physical presence as well.
He's
So
too
yeah,
young to be top three, though. Yet.
oh yeah, yeah.
Right.
I'm not just thinking of guys that are going to shoot up the board at this point. But yeah, so I would agree. Yeah, I think Noah Schultz is a great one for a pitcher coming up. And then you have I was surprised you didn't mention any of the college guys because
That's true.
um could shoot up.
The college guys, this class is so in our league, we can pick up we can pick up anybody at any time, really. And so college guys are, I think there's a competitive advantage in if you follow them and you roster them at the right time, you can find a superstar on essentially with a low draft pick or on waivers. Um, like especially that when I'm looking at these mocks, and a lot of people think Cleveland goes Travis Bazana one. in part because of they feel like they probably can offer him a little less than slot. And he obviously plays second base, which is not always easy to find. Elite offense. But that means Charlie Condon probably goes out of Georgia to the Reds. And if you can imagine, so Condon, for those who aren't following, I think has 34 homers in like 38 games. 6'6", right-handed hitter. If you can imagine a hitter like that with, what I think probably ends up being 65 grade power. I've seen some comps to guys like Bohm. I think he's a much better hitter than Bohm. But imagine 65 grade power, maybe even a touch more, and a 55 to 60 grade hit tool in Cincinnati. You can dream about like 45, 50 homers with a player like that in that park, given the development that we would expect from him, and that they don't move the wall back, 30 feet or something like that. But Condon, I think Condon could be really high immediately. I don't really feel that passionate about, Braden Montgomery might jump quite a bit because he's a switch hitter, great EVs, but he's got some swing and miss. The pitchers, I love the pitchers, Smith and Burns, but I can't use resources on college pitchers throwing in the high 90s on a precious roster spot, at least in our home league. Anyways, I think that Condon is the one player, Condon, Bazana, and even maybe Weatherholt, because of position, are the three that I could see being, say, top 10 prospects going into next year, in the same way that Langford and those guys were this year. Do you have a favorite of the college guys?
I kind of like, I know this is controversial as far as kind of the controversy of the player he or the person he became after is Todd Helton, right? I always loved Helton in Colorado. There was some controversy linked with him, wasn't there? After his, didn't he say some things?
I don't know, probably.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
anyway,
know.
but anyway, maybe I'm just leaking it with somebody else. But anyway, I loved Helton as a player, so I take back if I misspoke about that. But why I'm saying that is Kurtz has a very high chance of being drafted by the Colorado Rockies. A lefty in Colorado who has great plate discipline, great power, gap to gap as well. I kind of see another Todd Helton there if he goes to Colorado.
I like Kurtz a lot. I like Kurtz a lot. The one team, I don't want to see him go to Oakland. I've seen him mock to Oakland a bit, and that would be, I like the A's, but I just don't know what the park is going to look like in the future of the organization, right? They might keep him down until he's 26 to be jerks. I do roster him in our league. We'll see what happens with him. All right, I got a question for you. How happy are you with Nick Gonzalez?
How happy am I with Nick Gonzalez?
So the background in this question is, we both really liked Nick Gonzalez probably 2 years ago as a prospect. I think he's been in and out of your roster in our home league a bunch. We were both disappointed that he didn't produce immediately. Drafted out of New Mexico State. Like, I guess the park factors in that park were totally ridiculous. But he's come up and actually played pretty well at this point. I think he's got to be, what, 25, 26 now? But playing a very good second base for the Pirates, and he's on your team. So are you happy with him, and what has he done to adjust to become a better player?
I'll address that in a second. The one thing with Helton, he had a back and forth with a broadcaster about, because he was in the Royd era. That was the
Oh, that's right.
linked to him. But he did push back really hard on that. It's never been proven on that. I don't think there's any reason to accuse him of that just because he was such a great hitter.
Sure.
But anyway, so Nick Gonzalez, I'm really happy. I've always tracked him. When I first rebuilt my keeper team, I tried to get, multiple players at multiple positions, and he was going to be my second baseman of the future, right? And this was like maybe 2021, right?
Mhm.
And so I kept him, and he struggled, especially with, and you mentioned this a lot in the pod, in the Monos pod, that he struggled a lot with the strike zone and swinging strikes and so forth. And you saw
Mhm.
that in Myers' numbers, even though he's always maintained all throughout his career from college into the minors a high OPS, because he does hit the ball hard and he does go gap to gap. Um, but what was interesting about this year, because I always have him on my watch list, and this is where Monos is very helpful, because once you start tracking a player, you kind of automatically keep going back to see them, right? So they're not necessarily a pop up to you because you've been tracking them for this long.
For
But
sure.
he really tried to improve his strike zone awareness and his pitch recognition over the offseason. And nobody's ever knocked his work ethic, right? He's one of the everybody talks about his work ethic, what he does with film, what he does with pitchers, just his dedication to hitting. So it appeared, just looking at his numbers from spring into the minors, that's something he's really improved upon. And yeah, so we'll see. He had a great week this week coming up. He hit a couple home runs. He's gotten some clutch hits as well. He got a clutch hit today. Um, yeah, so uh, and some of his hits we were talking about Shota. He had a couple to the track against him. That just go out as outs, but they were allowed out. So he hits the ball hard. If he continues with the contact and strike zone recognition, he could be that 280, 20 home run type of second baseman, which kind of puts him in that range where Torres was, right?
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have the speed, but I think he has a better bat than Torres when it comes to average and gap to gap.
I'm happy for him. I like him. I don't want him to stand in the way of Tamar Johnson, who's another one of my guys, but I say my guys, well, another one of the guys I follow and I enjoy. Um, but I'm happy for him because it was a struggle, right, to get to this point for him. A lot of swing and miss in zone, a lot of just signs that his season in New Mexico was a product of the quality of opposition and the park, and he's fought back to make the majors, which is very cool. Uh, you got another question?
Another question. Yeah, so who is where are what's the best way of framing this? Who's first place in the Mariners division, and how far the Mariners go this year?
Mariners are. I think the Mariners are. It's their division to lose.
Mhm.
Um, to me, so I did take some notes on each division just for the heck of it, in case we did talk about it. And that's something we will do too, is break down divisions at times. I think it's their division to lose. I think Texas benefited last season from some career years from some guys, and I don't know that Adolis or Corey Seager or Nate Lowe will have the type of seasons ever again, even a Jonah Heim that they had in 23. But the big thing with Texas is they don't have the pitching, and I know they're expecting Maley and Scherzer and maybe DeGrom at the end of the season, but they just don't have the pitching to get them there, right? And the bullpen is shaky too. So Texas to me is, and the Mariners, I'll start with the Mariners. They just, when you have starting pitching like they do, and you have a solid bullpen like they do, it's baseline is like 85 wins, right? The offense isn't producing at all. They're scoring under 4 runs a game, and they're still in first place because the pitching is so great. I also think that once it starts to warm up, you'll see a lot of Mariners hitters get back to doing what they've done historically. Jorge Polanco, Mitch Garver, Julio Rodriguez, right? JP Crawford. I think
Mhm.
those guys are going to heat up as the weather heats up. And if that offense gets any better than what it is right now, to me, they play like a 90-win team. I don't know that they make it to 90 wins, but they will play like a 90-win team. And then the Astros, who are the other contender, I think the Angels and Oakland are non-contenders. but the Astros are they lost their mojo. And I think it's very clear as to why, right? They lost some of the guys who were Correa, Springer, like the part of that core are no longer there. But the big thing is they've lost their way with scouting and numbers, right? They had this tremendous edge under Lunau, and then even under what was his name, Click. They had this approach where they were cutting edge. They just saw things differently, and now they went out and signed uh, Jose Abreu 2 years ago, right? They signed Josh Hader to this enormous contract, and there were reasons to believe these players might fall off a little bit. And so they lost their way. And to me, that was the advantage that they had. And they also picked low enough in the draft over a number of years and mortgaged two of their top prospects in the Verlander deal, right? And so they have no minor leaguers to speak of. And so now you're left with kind of a shell of what that team used to be. I don't think that, and a pitching staff that can't stay healthy. So to me, you always have to worry about Houston. You know that they're probably going to win somewhere. I think this year somewhere between like 85 and 90 games, and they'll get there. I just don't think that they have the horses to beat the Mariners, barring a big injury, meaning Julio Rodriguez or one of their starting pitchers, or maybe two of their starting pitchers. I think this is the Mariners' division to win.
Mhm. Yeah, speaking of their division and this week in baseball, how about the A's? Everybody was saying, oh, they're just 3 games under 500 last week, and now they've lost 8 in a row.
Plummeted. That team, that organization is a joke. You know, and the Angels aren't too far behind, right? The information that
But
didn't
at least the Angels have Washington getting them kind of in at least in shape as far as baseball fundamentals and
right. Well, there's a
stability.
baseline. I think there's a baseline that he brings. He brings accountability and, like you said, fundamentals, and that's a good start. I feel bad for him because he's not going to be there when they get good, right?
Mhm.
He's going to be gone, and someone else is going to come in and take advantage of that. But yeah, I think every team needs somebody like that, whether it's your manager or otherwise, bench coach, whatever it is, to to whip you into shape, right? And that's what they needed. I think I have one. I'll do one last question. Maybe have you do one last one. Um, how do you? So kind of a two-parter. Our league is a holds league, right? We have holds and saves as categories on their own. Um, but bullpens are all over the place now. You see, uh, we saw who was it? There's a closer that pitched the seventh a couple days ago, and everybody was up in arms. But you see roles all over the place. And I rostered, Reed Garrett and Ryan Walker. Garrett with the Mets, Walker with the Giants, both of them, and neither of them have real, truly defined roles. Walker has 6 holds. Garrett has 4 holds, 2 saves. He's 5-0. But if we can't truly define a reliever, right? This is the inning they pitch. Joe Jimenez is coming in the 8th for the Braves if they're winning. Like, it's nice to have that predictability, but there's so much more meat left on the bone if you're looking for a Reed Garrett type or a Ryan Walker type, where you're getting wins, you're sprinkling in some other stats, and they're striking everybody out. How do you build a bullpen specifically, I guess, in our league, but for fantasy baseball in general, with a bullpen being able to morph into different things now?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's totally changed, right? So I think the strategy has to change quite a bit before before kind of the recent changes. I used to stress if I went into a keeper league without having, one or two closers
Mm-hmm.
and keeping them, but now it's like no big deal. And you see closers there it's always been volatile, right? So look at Diaz this year, right?
Yeah.
It was like he was Mr. Dependable number one, and not so at least recently. So and part of it even going back, I call this the Torres strategy because because you beat me in the finals. I think what was that? Going back almost 10 years, right?
Yeah.
2014 or 15. Just picking up a bunch of old guys during the week of the playoffs, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of taught me that holds guys aren't like high investment
Right.
type players. Whereas I used to try to not only try to get that closer, but then I would try to get that sure eighth inning guy, right? It was
Mhm.
usually from San Diego. They always had the eighth inning guy. Um, but now it's become more volatile, and I would even question even going back then how much that's worth it, especially in a non-dynasty league where you are keeping players. So a
Right.
keeper league, you're limited to only 15. Why would you want to invest in a player that you could pick up, somebody comparable, but that may not have that big name,
Sure.
right? And yeah, so to me, it's use your moves, especially early in finding those guys.
Mhm.
And I
There's
don't and I don't think it's that complicated either. Find the guys um that have these great K to walk ratios because those are the players that are going to be dependent on. So that's how you got Garrett, right? Garrett had what he's like 20-1 at one point, right when it was coming up. And you could jump on it because that player isn't going to do the middle innings anymore. They're going to start trusting him because they're saying
right.
he's missing bats and he's not going to walk anybody. So
Right.
he's going to be promoted to the seventh or eighth inning. So yeah, I think that position can be built during the year, and it's not going to kill you. So what? You lose a category, you're in it for the long haul.
Right. There's for me, like picking up Walker, picking up Eric Miller, picking up Reed Garrett, it was, so essentially sorting by whiff rate and then going in and looking at individual pitches and then seeing, okay, like here's the bullpen they're in. Here's how well they're pitching compared to the guy who's picking up holds right now. I'm guessing 2 weeks from now, Reed Garrett's going to be their high leverage, you know, non-ninth inning reliever. And sure enough, that's where he ended up. Same with Ryan Walker. Ryan Walker was actually an old school scout type of thing. I was watching the Giants play and I was watching him pitch, and I'm like, how the heck does a right-hander hit anything off of him, right? Because he's crossfire. His slider is just like moving from basically a right-handed hitter's back to the corner of the outside of the plate, and he's still throwing 95 from this crazy slot, right? And I was just it's like there's no way this guy's not going to succeed throwing like this unless he gets hurt. So let me get him. Um, I just looked. I've got 11 wins out of my bullpen, and Robert Suarez is the only closer I have. We have
Mhm.
5 relievers, and I'm 3-2-2 in the saves category after 7 weeks. And so I
Mhm.
just think it goes to show, like, yeah, I might lose saves by a lot at some points in time because I have literally one legit closer, right? But what it gives me to have the quality of pitcher in those other 4 slots that are stacking up strikeouts, getting me wins, and winning holds, to me is worth it. So it's interesting because I feel like it's changing so quickly how to build a bullpen in fantasy baseball, but specifically in a holds league. It's just very different than it used to be. And I think it's a way to keep to have an advantage over opponents if they're still trying to build it more conventionally.
Mhm.
One last question for
Yeah.
you if you have it.
And Suarez was one of the ones last week that came in the eighth inning, right? And then
Yeah.
Estrada got the save in the ninth. So that's interesting as well. And that leads to I didn't have this question planned, but it has to do with building bullpens, and it has to do with your bullpen this week.
Mhm.
Do you try to spread out your bullpen along different divisions and teams? Like before, I used to sometimes I would have the eighth inning guy and the closer on the same team,
Mhm.
just because it was kind of closer insurance in case the closer blew it or got hurt.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool that you get, if it's a good day or a good week for that team, you could get like multiple saves and multiple holds from that team. But if
Sure.
that team goes on a losing streak, then it it isn't going to benefit you. So is that part of your strategy to think about that?
Mm, no, it's not. It's I do have like two middle relievers with the Giants, right?
Mhm.
Um, no, actually, this is so unscientific, but I have different stats that I look at, right? And I already mentioned most of it. It's primarily it's whiff rate, it's having multiple pitches, 30-40% whiff rate. Um, it's certainly roll, and roll is mostly going to determine what I'm willing to pay for that player, not necessarily whether I want that player or not. But to answer your question, I tend to pick up players on teams that I enjoy watching. And it's really hard for me to justify picking up a player on a team that I don't like. And so, as an example, I'll just throw this out there because I don't think I'm going to do this move, but I was considering picking up Jock Peterson. And Jock Peterson has a 950 OPS so far this season, and he's not rostered in our league. Probably because he's a platoon player, but there we have daily starting lineup, so why not roster him? However, I hate watching the Diamondbacks for whatever reason. I always have. And I think it dates back to like the Tim Salmon, Luis Gonzalez days. I just couldn't stand that team. Schilling is a big face for that team. For lots of reasons, I can't stand Kurt Schilling. It's just not, I've never really gravitated to that organization. And the idea of watching a Diamondbacks game is not appealing to me. I'd rather do something else with my time. So I didn't pick up Jock Peterson, even though he makes sense on my team, right? So even when it comes to bullpen, like I don't think it's a coincidence that I have two guys on the Giants. I like watching Giants games. Their park is so aesthetically pleasing, right?
Mhm.
I love John Miller. I think he's a great announcer. I always have. Uh, Joe Jimenez, Atlanta Braves. I don't love watching the Braves, but I roster Ronald Acuna, so I'm going to naturally be watching those games. Uh, so I think a lot of it is aesthetic for me. A lot of it is wanting to watch certain teams, but that's provided that I have options with players that hit the standards that I have for uh, rostering relievers, right? So it's a little bit of it's a baseline of a bunch of numbers, and then the deciding factor is quite literally, do I like watching that team or not? Which is kind of silly, but this part
That's why we do this, right? This is for the fun of.
totally. And it's the conversation that we had offline about Gleyber Torres being cut. It's you cut him because you're emotional and you're frustrated with him, and I think we all take fantasy baseball very seriously, and it's a big part of our lives. And if you're tired of having the guy and you're mad and you want him gone, like totally get it, right? It's probably won't make or break your season, but I think it's kind of fun when people care that much that they're like, what, screw this, I'm done with this guy. It's kind of funny.
Those are those are fun moments. We've texted about it before in our league when somebody, it's a dump that the manager did just because it's so pissed from
It's a hate cut is what I call
the.
it. It's funny. You got anything else to add for this initial episode?
Um, it's been fun. It's been cool.
It is. I think that there's, again, the motive or the direction of this podcast is that we all love fantasy baseball, and it plays a huge role, I think, in keeping a lot of us level-headed and keep from going crazy with the rest of our lives. And
Mhm.
and it's something that we're really, it's an obsession, to be honest, right? It's beyond a passion. And we can go on ad nauseum about numbers and strategy and all those things, but at times you lose some of the love for the game itself, because you're so fixated on fantasy. And for me, I really wanted to find a way to weave both my love for the game and fantasy baseball together. And I think that a lot of us fall in that boat. I don't think there are a lot of us who are just like numbers and that's it, and I'm not watching games. We just love baseball. And so this podcast aims to reach that person who loves both and loves talking about both. So the plan is for these to just be conversations like it was today, very informal, weaving in fantasy baseball and our love for the game and talking about what happened in the previous week.
Hmm.
Anything to add, Matt?
The one thing you didn't mention, we mentioned the A's losing streak this week,
Mhm.
every day this week. There's one team that won every day this week, and it's your favorite team, the New
My
York.
favorite team?
I'm being sarcastic. The Yankees.
Yeah.
What's just the final word here? Between them and Baltimore, who are you picking at the end?
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
I just think they have more. I like the fact that they have youth. I think the youth means that they're more likely to stay healthy. Um, Aaron Judge has shown, he's been good recently, but you can ask questions about Aaron Judge. The Yankees are going to need guys like Carlos Rodon to pitch well, and I don't know that that's a given. Um, I love Luis Seal's fastball, but the reality is that guy walks everybody, and I don't know if that lasts forever. So I just think that the Orioles, top to bottom, are so talented that it wins out, right?
Mm.
When you think you can go Burns, Bradish, Grayson, 1, 2, 3, with a couple of lefties. Dean Kremer and Irvin and Means are all very good starters, right? It's just plus the offensive talent across the board. I just think Baltimore's a better team.
Mm.
And it's not my Yankees hate. That's me trying to be the objective analyst. I
Mm.
think that they're a better team.
Mm.
Understanding the Yankees are good. Understanding the Yankees, are 2 games up on the Orioles right now. The Orioles are going to win out.
The Orioles system is just so incredible too, as far as not only getting the talent, but then training the talent.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there was you experienced with Kirby today what I experienced with Reagan's a couple of weeks ago, that you could get ahead in counts with Baltimore, but you can't strike them out, and it's totally frustrating. Reagan's I think had like a 45 pitch inning, and they just had to take him out
Yeah.
because they just kept fouling stuff out. He'd get in 1, 2 counts, and then he'd throw it over, and they hit it hard, and yeah, they're tough, and you can even see it in a player we both rostered in Joey Ortiz, right?
Yeah.
See players go from Baltimore to like the Brewers, and they're just they're just one up of every other player in the lineup as far as plate discipline and how they approach their at bats.
Yep. They make incredible contact. You see some changes with two-strike approaches. There's just a lot of positives with that team. That's a gnarly lineup to face. And
Hmm.
I just think the Yankees, you're rolling out, Trent Grisham at times and Giancarlo Stanton and whoever's playing third base du jour. Austin Wells is potentially your starting catcher. It's just there are too many question marks. Plus the injuries, Garrett Cole's injury. You're getting an incredible season so far from Clark Schmidt. I don't know if that's real. There are a lot of question marks and a lot of holes to poke in that roster that the Orioles just have. It's next man up with them. You could have an injury at second base and bring up Connor Norby, right? You could have an injury at in center field and decide Enrique Bradfield is going to play great defense, and so we just need to bring him up. And you've got plus center field defense and double plus speed now at hitting ninth in their lineup. Jordan Westberg barely has a home, even defensive home, even though he's hitting the cover off the ball, right? It's everywhere. The one place I think is if the bullpen is shaky, and if they sustain an injury to one of their top 3 in the rotation, at least playoff wise, I think they can be had, um, especially if it's Burns, right?
Mm.
Bradish or Rodriguez, I think they could deal with, but Burns would be a big one because then they don't have that number 1. But yeah, super fun team, super duper fun team. All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for listening to episode 1 of This Week in Fantasy Baseball. We will be back every Sunday. I think next Sunday will likely be me and Aaron Alvis. We'll probably do some episodes where it's the 3 of us. That's always a fun dynamic. But I hope you enjoyed the episode. I certainly did. I miss talking baseball with you, Matt. It's good to be
Yeah.
back on.
All right,
All right, brother. Thank you.
man.
Take care.
Good week.
You too.